Hey, Shane. Shane.
Yeah, mate, yeah.
What are you drinking there?
Oh, just a bit of tea, mate.
So was that tea?
Yeah, tea, it helps relax me, calms me down.
Okay, well, put that shit down. Actually, you know what? Throw it out. I don't even want to fucking see it in my face right now.
Finish it
No,
first?
don't finish it. You know why? We got a bag of Australian Warfighter coffee sitting in the kitchen, ready to go.
What the fuck is that?
You're telling me you never heard of Australian Warfighter coffee?
No.
Let me hit you with some knowledge, bro.
Jeez, you sound so revved up about this.
Yeah, I've had about 3 cups of it already. Okay, I'm ready to go. Mate, it's veteran-owned, veteran-operated. Mm-hmm. They're raising awareness for veteran issues. Mm-hmm. They give back to the veteran community. What's better than that?
Well, nothing.
Exactly. So like I said, throw the tea out. AustralianWarfighterCoffee.com. Check it out. That was empty, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, before we get started, happy to announce our new proud partnership with Spadex Print and Design. The Defence Force community finally has its very own print shop. From business cards, banners, table throws and all your display needs, iconic for stickers and labels. They also build websites. So support Australian veteran-owned business, proud to have served, Spadex Print and Design. And they also have launched a new website for Australian military stickers called King's Corporal. King's Corporal do personalised ribbon stickers, custom military stickers, and it's veteran-owned business, which is even better. So get involved, support the cause at www.kingscorporal.com.au. Alright, welcome back to the Maladjusted Monkeys podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Archer, joined always by my favourite co-host, Mr. Shane Clupp. Are you alright, mate?
Oh.
You've got that sound check sorted. We've had some issues, and Shane's just been a ball of stress for the last 2 hours.
Oh my god. Trying to set up that new laptop, that didn't work at all.
Well, I'm glad you got it all working, mate, and we're recording, and we've got a special guest today. Very excited to have him here. He's been in the Queensland Police Service for a lot longer than I have. It's Senior Sergeant Andrew Dupere.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming along. We've said for a little while we're gonna do this, so it's just worked out well that timing's well that we've been able to do it and get you on.
Yeah, I've been wanting to come for ages, so
yeah,
I'm glad I've got some free time to come.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, we should probably start off. I know you as a senior sergeant who's a district duty officer, but for anyone who's not in the Queensland Police Service, can you just explain what your role is and what you do?
So probably for all the Defence Force, I'm probably the equivalent of RSM, so I'm the top of the non-commissioned rank.
Yep.
I don't want to go any further. I'm happy sitting on that rank.
Yep.
So basically my role as a district duty officer is I look after 10 stations and I represent the Chief Superintendent, who's a district officer. Probably a Lieutenant Colonel is the equivalent. I look after his platoon or brigade or whatever. And I'm his representative after hours. So yep. I manage the 2 districts, roughly about anywhere from 40 to 50 staff, and I attend major incidents as well. And
okay, so it's not just like a lot of. I would imagine at that kind of rank, it's a lot of admin and stuff. But you're actually getting out on the road. And
so DDOs, we're on the road, so I get picked up from home. That's one of my perks.
Yep.
But the moment I drop my partner off, I'm on the road. So I respond to jobs. I wear a firearm, and as Tom will attest that most of the time I'm in the thick of it. So I'm a pretty hands-on.
You don't mind a taser deployment?
I'm in the thick of it most of the time, and I've been an operational police officer all my service. Where a lot of my colleagues at this rank haven't been on the road. They've been going off and being a manager of a station, I think.
Yeah.
But I've actually been on the road for 30 years. So.
Yeah, wow. How old were you when you joined?
So I was about 24. So I used to be in the fire brigade before.
Oh, wow.
So
full time?
Yeah, so I was in the Cairns fire brigade.
Yep.
And before that, I used to work in the prisons.
Oh, wow.
So I have got a bit of a background.
And you were in the reserves as well.
So I did 7 years in the Army Reserves in the 80s.
Yeah, wow.
So I started off as a grunt walking around.
Yeah, nice.
Got sick of that. I'd actually did my recruit course at El Alamein in Port Augusta.
Okay, yeah.
So it's 40 degrees, and
Yep.
and so I got sick of walking around and grunting around. So I was grunt for about 3 years, and I was about 17. So then I drove trucks, and then I got sick of driving trucks, and because they were all the crash gearboxes, and then I finished up in the military police. So.
Oh, well,
what was that like?
Good. Finished up with 2 hooks and
yep.
got my motorbike license and all my other stuff. So it's quite good, and that sort of precursor getting me into the police and the civvy side. So
yep. And Go, Shane.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what made you want to get out of the transfer from the fireys to the police?
I always wanted to be a police officer. Like, I'm third, fourth generation police officer.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I always wanted to be a cop. And when I was in the fireys, it sounds glamorous, but it's really boring. You're sitting around waiting for a fire to happen. And in Cairns, where I worked, the only thing that would happen in the mornings was the Japanese would cook toast in their hotel room and set the fire alarm off. So then you'd have to go lights and sirens and deal with that. And it was kind of boring. And I sort of applied at both the same time. And then the police took a while to come through. And when it came through, I went, you know what? I'll be happy to go. And
that's what I came to realise, because I was an auxiliary fire for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it was like maybe 4 or 5 actual jobs. And the rest was just like the co-op or the local grocery shop's alarm going off, or someone burning toast or overcooking dinner.
I forgot you did that, eh? Yeah. Completely forgot that.
And it got quite like it. I could see in 30 years' time, I'd be bored shitless with it and go, frickin' hell. And I don't regret it. Like, I've been a police officer for 30 years. I still love it. I still love coming to work. Every day is different. And
from working with you, like, I know that you love being, like you said before, in the thick of it with the action. Like, you came to my station, was it 2 years ago?
Yep.
When you come in as the boss for a little bit.
Yep.
And you could just see that just sitting behind a desk all day just wasn't...
did my head in.
Wasn't for you.
I used to be an officer in charge of Bodetta station in the country.
Yep.
And absolutely loved it. But my heart is on the street.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't join this job to sit behind a desk. And managing people has its challenges, and there's a few people that challenged me. And so I said, well, no, I really want to be back on the road, and a district duty officer job came up, and I jumped at it.
So you've been in, you're saying before, nearly 30 years now.
So 30 years. I've been in already 30 years, but that's the start of the academy. So we count when you actually get out of the academy. So it's 30 years in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, wow. So when you first joined, I can imagine there'd be a big difference between what the job was like when you first joined to now, and not just equipment-wise, but...
Yeah, I agree. When I first started, there was nothing about PTSD or stress or anything like that.
Yep.
It's because we had a bit of a culture, and it's probably a bit like the army, where we could, after work, if we went to a shitty job, then we would have a drink afterwards. So we'd have a few beers. And there was a police club in town where you could go in uniform after work and have a few beers. So we all would not necessarily sit around and talk about it, but we just, instead of going home and thinking about it, you actually were with your mates that were there.
Decompress. And
exactly.
Chat.
So, so that was the really... And there was a lot of camaraderie there.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the service has done a really good job of cutting that out. You'd have to be a brave officer in charge of a station to have a beer fridge in your station.
Yep. Oh, really?
Because the service really frown upon it.
Yep.
And it's just... And not that there was any problems. Like, there was the odd problem with any alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
But, they just stopped all that. And so the camaraderie of the police has really died off.
Yeah, well, that's one thing from when I left the military and came into the police. I was expecting the camaraderie to be just the same as the military. And then I quickly realised that it wasn't. Like, you finished a shift, like you were saying before, and I was expecting us to hang around, have a beer or whatever, or just hang out with your mates, because that's what we did in the army. You're always with your mates.
Yeah.
But now you finish a shift, and everyone goes their separate ways. You know, like, you don't really decompress or talk about what happened.
And I think the thing that made it easier in the army for that to happen was the fact that, you know, you had to live on for a long, like 4 years before you even got looked at to move off base. So you were living with those people. So whether or not you were drinking or not, you were always with your mates, always chatting with them, which was really good. Whereas now, you know, when I rocked up to 2CR after I got back in, I think I was the only one who lived on base straight away. Everyone else just moved straight off. And yeah.
How many stations have you worked at over your career?
So I'll just do a snapshot. So I started in Fortitude Valley.
Yep.
And that wasn't right at the Fitzgerald inquiry. So half the sergeants were getting arrested for corruption. And inspectors. So there was a lot of arrests of police. So the public perception of police was pretty horrid.
Yeah.
So after the Valley, I went to the city, and then I moved into Crime Operations Branch, which is the drug squad, homicide, child abuse unit. Did a few years there, and then I moved back into uniform at Orderly. And from Orderly, I got promoted to Senior Constable at City Station. And then from City Station, I went to Surface. And from Surface, I went to Burleigh CIB as a detective. And
That would have been a good spot.
yeah, it was good. Busy.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be uncommon to have 90 files on hand, each detective.
Jesus.
Which in a suburban station, say Dutton Park, they'd probably have 12. We'd have about 90.
Holy
so,
crap.
Wow.
and everything happens on the coast, as you know. So, and then after that, I went to Holland Park, came back to Holland Park because I had to come on light duties.
Yep.
And then from there, I got promoted to sergeant at Early Beach.
Oh, nice.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a police house overlooking the water,
Oh, beautiful.
and I took a newborn baby there plus my 3-year-old.
Yep.
So we basically, I had an offer of 2 stations, City or Whitsundays, as a sergeant.
Jeez.
And we said, look, it doesn't matter where we are with a newborn baby, and as you'll find out, as you all know, you make the most of it, and we loved it there.
Yep.
And then from Early Beach, I got promoted to Senior Sergeant at Bow Desert as the officer in charge, and then from there I moved to DDO, and I've been DDO now for about 12 years.
Yep.
So that's 30 years in a nutshell what I've been doing there. So.
Jeez. It sounds busy.
But it is, but it's 30 years. So
30 yeah, I've
30
spent
years
30 years.
is a long time. So
Yeah.
I've always made the point of moving every 4 to 5 years,
Yep.
just so I don't get stale, and that's probably my benefit where I really love the job.
Yeah. And you have told me that a few times. You said
Yeah.
don't stay in one spot for more than 5 years.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will hit that stale point, which I guess I'm going through at the moment. But that's a different story.
Exactly. Like, and it's nothing that I didn't do. Like after 4 or 5 years, I worked 4 years at Surface Paradise, and I'm like, freaking hell! Every night was a busy night, and you're fighting everyone.
Yep.
And you went, I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
You know? I can go somewhere else where it's a lot nicer.
Yep.
And look, I went to Early Beach. You couldn't, like, it's still policing is policing, but Early Beach.
You mentioned public perception before, actually, which I want to touch on. From the early days in your career to now, can you see a difference in public perception towards police?
So when I graduated and started, what police said on the road was gospel. You did what most people did what they were told, and no one ever told you to get fucked or abused you. Or the occasional drunk would want to take you on and box on with you.
Yep.
But now that's all died away. People don't mind throwing a punch at you. People don't mind spitting on you. People don't mind telling you, I've knocked on people's doors and they've gone, what do you F&Cs want? Like, we haven't even started that dialogue.
Yeah, they don't know why you're there.
Yeah, and that was to deliver a death message.
Oh, wow.
So these drunken idiots called their mum up to go to the come pick up from the pub. She was pissed, and so she's crashed into the back of into a truck, killed herself. So we then had to go to these guys and say, look, mum's died. But that's how we were greeted.
Oh, wow.
You just go,
Not off to a good start.
No,
Yeah.
but the public perception, it died away when Fitzgerald inquiry was on the corruption.
Yep.
And then slowly over the years, the service has done a really good job building that back up. But you've always got that 5% of the population that absolutely hates our guts, no matter what we do. So
I guess it's hard now we were talking about this earlier, Shane, with social media and everything. Everyone's opinion gets put out there.
Yeah.
And most of the time, what gets noticed is more negative opinions or negative stories, because that's what, people want to see and it starts trending. So,
well, we saw that this week, the firefighters out there working 12, 15, 18 hours a day, and some fascist gets on the and gets a forum, and still getting a forum saying, when they finish, they're going to go home and commit DV on their missus.
yeah.
That is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And the press focused on that, not the great work that these firemen are doing. I don't know about you, but if I'm doing 18 hours in the hot fire, that'd be the last thing I'd go home and thinking, I'm getting home, I'm going to just punch on with my missus.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be having a shower and saying, I've had a hard night, darling, going to bed.
Yeah, be exhausted and we know that's not the case. Like, obviously, domestic violence exists, but to come out and say this is what's going to happen, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd like to know where she gets her facts and figures from.
It's just insulting, and that's where we are as a society. It's not about celebrating. We want to blame someone.
Yeah.
We want to bring them down, and that's no different in police, army. You look at the VC winners.
Yeah.
They're all getting crucified, you know? And
Yep.
let's attack them for doing their job, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, and it's right across the board. Let's have a go at anyone that wants to give their forum. And you're saying internet allows them to have that platform.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you were first in the service, you come across your negative stuff, but you'd only hear about it if you were at a situation and someone's saying it to you directly. Whereas now, like I said, you see it on social media or it's on the news, all the negative opinions about police or any emergency services. And now we're seeing like ambos being attacked all the time. Was that something that happened when you were earlier on in your career, where ambos always being this abused physically?
Never.
No?
Never, ever. Ambulance and fireys were always never picked on.
Yep.
Now, like, I was watching the Triple O emergency the other day, and they had the ambulance had on the back of their ambulance, "Say no to assaulting ambulance staff."
Yep.
And this bloke pulled up. Did you see that? The bloke pulled up and said something, "Oh, you all deserve to be bashed anyway." Remember, the public just wound the window, and these two ambos, you should have seen them how shocked they were, and they just come from saving 2 or 3 people's lives, and this guy toots at the lights and makes them wind down the window and says that, and I'm like, is that where we've come to as a society, where you can't even recognise the people there? And you know how hard they go when someone needs help.
Yep.
You know, it's the same with the police, you know, same with the fire. And even we're starting to see fireys attacked now for going to put out stolen burning cars.
It's mind-boggling. Like,
yeah,
especially ambos and fireys.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the cases with ambos, it's drug-affected people, I think, isn't it? That's mainly doing the assaults, like...
It's since ICE has come on board, I think. ICE is the factor that's really close. Because most people, with probably in the older days, heroin. So as soon as they stick in with Narcan, they come up fighting.
Yeah, because it brings them back. And
my wife's a nurse, and she used to get assaulted more times than I did.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She used to get punched and slapped all the time. She'd come home and go, "Our patient hit me today." So that's you can sort of write that off as medication and going through what they're going. You can't condone it, but you can sort of
understand it.
Yeah. So with going back to all the mental health stuff, we touched on how camaraderie earlier in your career is a lot different to what it is now. Did you see many people having issues earlier on in your career?
Never.
Falling off the perch? No?
No, we never saw. We did have a lot of drunk sergeants, so the sergeants were all drunks. And that's probably masking what they were going through.
Yep.
And I can sort of see now that I've come up into the older sort of era now where I'm the sergeant.
Yep.
You can see why that they were drunks, you know. Like, I'm talking they'd sit there with a glass of Coke or a can of Coke and half it would be rum.
And it's while they're working.
Yeah, and they just progressively got drunker and drunker for the shift, and you just avoided them.
Yeah.
That could be what they're going through.
Yep.
But none of the constables or senior constables you'd see PTSD or someone falling off the perch, because there was just that support base around.
Yep. And did anyone ever mention when they had issues, or it just wasn't talked about?
Wasn't talked about, but we did. And I still recall, 25 years ago, where mum was taking a child off the ferry, and the child slipped in between the ferry, and it drowned, and we didn't find it for a couple of days. That job, when we got back to the station, everyone said, right, we're getting a carton of beer and we're going to sit around. And we didn't really talk about the job, but it was just winding down from the job and not going home by yourself and going, oh, fuck, But we wound down, and so there was about 10 of us. We're all pretty well upset. And I can see every person sitting there having a beer.
Yep.
But we debriefed about it, and that's the thing we don't do now.
When did that start to happen? That people would either start coming forward, or that the service actually started to recognise it and start putting steps in place to mitigate it? Or
I think we're seeing the emergence over the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Yep.
When we now take people from a professional, academic side, so we're getting graduates from university. So a lot of the people coming to the police now are university trained, so they've left school and they've gone straight into school and they've done their degree, and then they've come into the police. Whereas before, a lot of my mates were carpenters and plumbers and things like that. So they had life experience, so they saw what life was out there a bit. Yep. And they're exposed, where these kids coming from university, they've got no life experience. All they've got is school, university, straight into the job. So that's what I'm saying is we're
and potentially not a lot of interpersonal skills because of the way that our generation communicates now, and a lot of it's not verbally face to face. A lot of it's over a screen and over a phone.
Yeah, well, we never had that. You know, like if we wanted to call our boss, we had to get on the radio, and the radio used to be about this big. You know, a bit like the radios I used to lug on my back when I was...
yeah, the man packs.
Yeah, you know, you'd never want to be the signalman. You just go, no, I'd rather be on point.
Yeah.
In the earlier days, if there was someone who had an issue, did the service have anything in place to help them?
Not to the extent now.
No?
Not to the extent now. So the service in their defence are getting better at saying, hey, we need to do something here.
Yep.
So I'd say in the last 15 years, we started employing psychologists, you know, not enough.
Yeah.
We started training our police and peer support officers. So we've got about 600 of those.
Yep.
But still not enough.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I've got some views we'll talk about later, what I think we should be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Both in the military and also the police.
Yep.
And it's mainly from my personal experience lately that I've actually changed my whole way of thinking.
Okay. What wanted to ask you, the current system we have in place, can you just explain what the process is for if someone goes to a critical incident, looking after that person?
All right, so myself as the district duty officer, and I'm speaking for myself, I can't speak for everyone else.
Yep.
I actually look at my staff and saying, okay, and you know that I won't say anything, I'll just observe and I'll see how they're coping with it. And then I basically contact an on-call HSO, Human Service Officer, which is psychologist. And I say, okay, these following people, there's 5 people fallen off the perch and there's 5 that are still affected by this job. So then she'll send us an email, he or she will send us an email saying, look, it's perfectly normal, the feelings you're having. And then they'll follow up on Monday. But it's basically left up to me at the scene to see how people are. So
if it doesn't start with you, then people may not get a phone call or anything like that?
Most of our district duty officers will contact the HSO on call at a critical incident. So.
Yeah. And you and me were talking about this earlier, Madison, like, 'cause I was trying to explain like the critical incidents and how you do get contacted after that.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what's going to affect someone, isn't it? Like, we all know a critical incident, and by that we mean, you know, if there's a death or like a firearm job or something like that, that's an obvious one to say, hey, someone may want to talk to that officer. But as you and me know, Andy, like, it's the little things of a job. It may not be a big job that can affect someone as well. So it's harder to pick up on stuff like that, isn't it?
It's the routine jobs. And when I was at Dutton Park, my style of management is that I will do managing for the first 2 hours, and that's answering emails, doing the finances, looking at what happened the last 24 hours, reading the logs. And then you probably noticed when I was working there at Dutton Park, then I would come out onto the floor for 2 hours and I'd talk to my staff, not about work, about their personal life, and get to know them, what affects them and things like that. Who's got kids, who hasn't got kids, who's divorced, whatever. And then I'd go back in the afternoon, finish off the emails and do that. And sadly that we don't do that. We don't bother to check with our staff and see how we're going.
Yep.
And out of the 35, 38 staff at Dutton Park, I knew everybody's details of their lives. Not drilling right down, but I knew about them where I could form a decision. So we were saying before, the backdoor stuff that comes and gets you is if you're a parent, and we've got the Lady Salento or the Children's Hospital in Dutton Park. Now that is a fantastic establishment, but it's a burden on the police that work in there because every critically injured child from around Queensland gets choppered in there and flown in there. So you're talking a police officer with a 3-year-old son, or a policewoman with a 3-year-old son or a 6-year-old, and we're sending them to Lady Salento for a child that's passed away. You know, are we bothering to ask about are you all right with this?
Yeah.
So what I've started doing as a DDO, and it's just me, none of the others do it, but I actually say, before you dish out that job, you need to ring me first, and then I ring the crew that's going to get the job and say, are you happy to do this? And people have said, no, I'm not. And so that's just that little thing, you know, that can affect someone who goes home to their 3-year-old child. So,
and that's part of that, I guess, that critical management of your personnel.
Yeah.
like understanding, like you were saying before, if you know that they have a family and how old their children are, it's like, oh, well, I probably won't send X because he's got, kids roughly the same age, but, why is a single guy, we'll send him, or, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But follow up afterwards and say, look, how was that job?
Yeah.
How are you going, And so that's what we don't do very well. And I was sort of saying before, like, when I've done management training at university level, nothing at all is about how we manage our troops like that who are involved in critical incidents. My nephew's at ADFA at the moment.
Yep.
ADFA?
Yeah.
Canberra. Yep. There's nothing in here. So he does a 3-year university course, and when he finishes that, he does the Air Force grab him and say, okay, now we're going to teach you how to be a leader. But I guarantee you there's nothing in there about welfare of your troops. And that's where we need to start focusing on. So in the university degree, in our universities and our academies, we need to start saying, okay, this is how you manage people, but this is what you need to do on the side as well, and have a whole term on that. Instead of just coming out and say, oh yeah, I can be a manager and I can run a platoon or run this, or run a district, but there's nothing ever about being a leader.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you find that when there is some sort of training for managing people or being a leader, it comes across as so, like, robotic.
Yeah.
And it's like a checklist. Like, I've had jobs in the past where a HSO has called me a few days after I've been to a critical incident, and we're talking on the phone, but it just sounds like they're ticking off a checklist.
Yeah.
They'll ask me a question, and I'll answer it, and there'll be a bit of silence, and then they're like, oh, yeah, I can understand what you're trying to say there. And it kind of felt like they weren't really listening to what I was saying. They were just, like, writing stuff down. And I'm sure they are listening, but their interpersonal skills, like, it's hard to do that on a phone.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I've never met this person before.
And if you don't feel listened to as well, then...
What's that?
If you don't feel listened to as well, and you're just like, these guys don't care, that's going to affect you as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it just reinforces that, like, I just want to get out of here and go home, and I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
Well, you feel like it's just an alarm's popped up on their phone and they've gone, oh God, I've got to ring Andrew.
Yeah. Yep.
I've got to see. And I'll talk about what happened to me recently in a little bit, but I really think our psychologists should be embedded in the...
Yeah.
And so they need to be police officers before the psychologists.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do 5 or 10 years in the police service or 5 or 10 years in the army, but at least put them through basic training and say this is what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
At least put them out in the field at a deployment and say this is what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. So if you put and I've been a while now, what are the platoons or battalions or whatever. So why isn't there a psychologist that's been an army personnel embedded in each platoon or each battalion or whatever? Why is there not a psychologist? Like, the police service got 11,000 police officers. How many HSO psychologists do you reckon we've got in the police? We've got 6. 6 to do 11,000.
What?
Wow.
6. So
how is there only 6?
Yeah. So they're not police officers. They don't know what it's like. And so they're just ticking a box, and you just go, why don't we train them and say, and there's plenty of psychologists out there who are graduating, guarantee it. Why don't we say, okay, you want to be a psychologist, let's hire 30 psychologists, but you're going to do a year being a police officer first.
Yeah.
Then you can move out of that, and then you can be embedded into a big station like Mount Gravatt Station or Ferny Grove Station. They've got their own psychologist.
Yep.
And how comfortable would you be sitting down talking to someone, you know they understand what you're going through, but they've got the processes to help you? That would be amazing.
Well, one thing I've noticed since we started doing the podcast, obviously I'm no professional psychologist, but since being open about, my ups and downs and things I've been through, once people started listening to the podcast at work, people would get in a car with me, and people I've worked with for 3-4 years would just start telling me all this personal stuff about them. And it would become like a decompression shift where I just listen to them and say, well, I understand what you're saying. This is the stuff that I've been through and what's helped for me. And I think because, I'm a police officer that's on the road and being open about, my issues, people are happy to talk, and then they feel better about it. And that would work. Like you said, if you have a psychologist that's been out on the road, but they have the professional, background to listen and give advice, but then say, well, I also know what it's like on the road because I've done it. I think people would, respond really well to that.
Yeah, exactly. And the same with and And it crosses over to Defence Force, crosses over to the fireys, crosses over to the ambulance, crosses over to doctors and nurses, you know, like, we just don't place enough emphasis on it. And how much would it save for work cover for a start?
Yeah.
You know, I know the police, there's about 100 police officers off on work cover now with mental health issues, you know. So those 100 are not at work.
Yeah.
How good would it be if the psychologist in bed, who knows anyone, knows those people and goes, righto, I'm dropping around to see them today.
Yep.
And then talk about it and say, those feelings you've got, it's all natural.
Yeah.
What you've been exposed to.
Yep.
So.
And it would come across less clinical. I think that's where, you know, when it feels just like a clinical kind of meeting, someone you don't know, you're reluctant to kind of open up about it. Yeah. It just seems odd. But yeah, if they were embedded, you knew this person, you know, you got to see them like once a week, just in passing to say good day or have a coffee or whatever. Even when you're feeling good, you know, when you do have those down times, I think it'd be easier to open up and have a chat with them.
And what about if they're in uniform?
Yeah,
so they're a sworn officer.
Yep.
Or they're a Defence Force officer or Defence Force enlisted person. So they're in uniform.
Yeah.
So straight away you can relate instead of someone sitting down with a HSO or a PSO or whatever who are not in uniform, and you can relate.
Yeah, I think that would work.
So,
Would you reckon that would cross over to defence, Shane?
Yeah. It will probably never happen.
It's all about money.
Yeah, 100%.
And what the police look at is, okay, they'll go, how much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
And the first thing they'll ask in the next breath is, what's the benefits? You know, like, I'll give you an example of what New South Wales Police have done, and they've done a really good job. So they've actually hired a warehouse. So this warehouse is a fully equipped gym, and embedded in there is a psychologist, embedded in there is a dietitian, embedded in there is a psychiatrist and personal trainers, and counsellors. So they basically, when you fall off the perch, you're transferred to this section for 3-6 months, however long it takes, and they rebuild you and they put you back on the path where you can come back as a productive officer. Not staying home for 3 or 4 years and never coming back and getting pensioned off.
Yeah.
You know, and so
see, that's a great idea, like a wellness centre.
Awesome idea.
So, yeah, like a wellness centre, yeah.
Yep.
And so they say, okay, we understand that you've been through this trauma, but and it's perfectly normal, and now we're going to rebuild you. And Victoria's just moving that way as well, because unlike Queensland, I think we've lost about 10 officers in the last 10 years to suicide. Victoria have lost 35 in the same time.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
Federal police have lost 25. You know, so if and that would probably only cost $10 million a year. But the savings of not losing that trained officer and putting him back on the street. So
Well, like you said, rebuilding, it's a perfect way to look at it because, when you go off work, you pretty much cut yourself off from the job completely. Go
and
home,
the community from your work.
Your community. So then when it is time to come back, you're just being rushed straight back into it without like an integration, I guess, without rebuilding an integration.
Yeah.
I get the Army kind of does that. I guess
with the Soldier Recovery Centre.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but that is. Do you know anything?
Not really. I haven't gone there or anything like that.
Yep.
But I was just thinking, like, well, like all these things would be like really good, nice to have. Like a psychologist embedded into your unit would be awesome. I reckon they'd have to just. One thing I'd like to see is like not just on a one-on-one basis where they're engaging with people with issues, but potentially like a PTI, like a physical trainer, where they're coming up with training programs for the squadron or for the section or for the platoon.
Yep.
The same way a psychologist should be thinking about ways in which they're going to develop and foster
build a culture,
of
group.
people talking. Or being able to open up, because I've noticed a lot. Same thing with some of the people from works and from some of my old units. You know, they'll actually open up to me now, and like just by them being able to open up and talk to someone who they know has gone through a similar thing, even if it's not from a deployment or something like that. I feel like that's what's helped me the most, is not necessarily like sort of talking to the psych helped, but just talking to a mate first can be like enough to get you onto that path. So I don't know, it's so complicated, man.
It is. But just remind me, you've told me about something you've done recently, but not too much detail. Something you did with the first years that come through?
So about 7 months ago, I went to I worked out it was a friend of mine. I didn't realise at the time, but I went to a police suicide, and he'd actually medically retired out of the service with a illness, and when that illness progressed, he decided to take his own life. So I was the DDO on the shifts. So I went there, and I was very conscious about who was going to get exposed to this incident. And so after I left, it did affect me, and I'll talk about a few things later, but it affected me, and I sort of broke down at the end of the street and had a bit of a tear up about it, because I then realised I actually knew this person. And when you're looking down at a person that's deceased, you really can't tell who's who. Mm. But I actually, when I drove off, it came back to me and I went, shit, I know this person, you know? So what I thought then, what can I do to stop this ever happening again? How can we bring those 10 deaths down to zero? So basically I target the new constables coming in. So on their first day of being sworn in, I do a lecture, and it's a bit corny. It's about half an hour. I've got an ex-police dog. She's black, and so I bring her in as a prop. So she's the black dog, and the black dog wanders around the room and doesn't discriminate against who gets mental illness. And basically I start off with, okay, this is the day in the life of police. And it was a really busy Monday, this shift, and this is for the whole of Brisbane. So on one Monday, just a normal Monday day shift, we shot dead an offender. There were 4 people killed in traffic accidents, and 4 of those were kids. And people say, well, that happened at Kingaroy. But those 3 kids got choppered into our area, so they were affecting us. I dealt with about 6 sudden deaths that day. So, and then you're not counting the traffic accidents, the suicides and things like that happen on any given day. And I said, this is what we're going to expose to you, and it could happen on your first day. And then I'll talk about statistics of why police kill themselves. And I'll talk about how many people a year actually want to kill themselves and who succeeds. And then I talk about how you can fall off the perch. And it's been a bit of a learning curve for me, because I have fallen off the perch in the last few weeks. And so I'm actually changing my lecture a bit.
Yep.
And I want a few visual aids so that the troops get a look at it and say, okay, this is what happened. Yep. And this is how it can happen to you. So what happened with me, and I hope I'll keep my shit together.
That's all right. Yeah.
Tommy pushed all my buttons last time, and I did, and I fell over. But basically, this year I've been exposed to a few incidents, and just a warning that there are some triggers for this next bit of the story for your people out there. So a gentleman decided to kill himself, and whilst we were looking for him, he went across a bridge, and as soon as the police pulled up, he jumped off and landed on the road. Well, stupid me, always in the right place at the wrong time. He landed in front of me. And so he fell about 25 metres. So I get out of the car and I switch straight into routine mode. Put my gloves on, safety, make sure no one hits us. And I go to treat him, and he's in the throes of dying. And so I called it on the radio and said he's dying. So then the day before, I just did what we call active arm offender training, and we do tactical first aid. And it sort of came back to me, so I did all the racking so he without going into too much detail, there's massive trauma on his face, so I cleaned out all the debris from his face, got the blood out, and he's come back to life.
Wow.
So he's still got major trauma, like he's touch and go whether he's going to live or not, but he's got massive trauma. Anyway, so I'm the DDO, I'm on the shift. I've been exposed to the most trauma, so I ring up the HSR and said, look, we've got 5 people that have fallen off the perch, and I found 5 people that had fallen off the perch. The 3 up the top and the couple down the bottom plus me. So I ring the HSR and I said, are you coming out to this? She goes, no. I said, aren't you on call? Haven't you got a police car? Haven't you got getting paid on on-call allowance? She goes, I don't come out to those incidents. I said, what do you come out to? She goes, oh, police shootings and things like that. I said, well, this is up there. So she didn't come out. She gave me advice how to get to the troops. So I'm looking after all the troops, because there's a few there that fell off the perch. And I didn't. I was just doing management mode. And anyway, so I'm getting everyone sorted, and there's a couple that I want to follow up the next day and say, how you going? So I'm telling everyone else to take 2 days critical incident leave, but didn't look out for me. I just went, So I come back to work next day and everything's good. I drive past the site a couple of times so I didn't have the site avoidance.
Yeah.
And
you did that intentionally?
Yeah. One time it was lights and sirens, so we flew straight past.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that one of the police officers went sick from a station, and so normally I put the crew in my car with me, and she just happened to be a counsellor in a previous before she joined the job.
Okay.
So she didn't ask me too many questions, but we just talked, and it was good. It was a good day. So the next day, Monday, I had what we call an admin shift, so I was off the road. And then the Tuesday, on the Sunday, the next day after it happened, the HSO rang me and said, who's a trained psychologist, and I explained the whole job to her. I gave her a briefing note, exactly what happened, who was exposed to what. And she said, how are all the troops going? Did you manage to speak to them all and help them out? And I said, yeah. And she's about to hang up. And I said, well, what about me? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I saw the most trauma. I was exposed to the most trauma. And she goes, oh, how are you? And I said, a bit fucking late now, isn't it? And hung up on her. And then I get this token phone call the next day from the HSO and just ticking the boxes.
Yeah.
Not really giving me any things. And then I came in and saw Tom the next day on the Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it was the Tuesday.
Yeah, and we started talking and he could see I wasn't right. And I started to lose it. So he pushed me into the side there. But the whole day room saw that I'd lost it because I just couldn't keep it together after that. And then one of the bosses grabbed me and took me upstairs and said, look, I'll drop you home. And I said, look, I'm not suicidal. I'm just upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I realised straight away that, and trust me, I have seen more things than anyone else has seen. But I think my cup was just too full.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and straight away I recognised something was wrong. So I pulled myself off the job and I said, right, I need to take some time off from this job. So I've gone on work cover. Straight away, and one of the guys said, you need to get hold of this psychologist. He used to be a copper for 18 years. So he did 12 years in Western Australia and then he did 8 years or something in the Federal Police. So I said, I want to get hold of him. So the first time I had to go see him was at Nambour because that's the only appointment he had.
Yep.
So I went and saw him and it's the best thing I ever did. And I've never been to a psychologist in 30 years.
This is your first time seeking like external help?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've always, not that I haven't fallen off the perch before,
but
I have, but I've never sought professional. But I realised I've got 4 years to go. I don't want to take this into retirement. I don't want to fuck up my retirement life with this hanging over me. So I wanted to get it treated straight away. And this guy's really good. I won't mention his name, but he's a really good bloke. And that's the secret. You've got to find someone that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so he started talking to me and he's given me a few good tips. And I've seen him 4 times now. And we alternate between the city and that. And he sees about 40 or 50 cops. He specialises in police. And he's astounded that the lack of support we get. And so I'm going through it, and I'm making a point that, and I'm really good, like I've probably like your listeners and probably like you, Tom, is I woke up with this feeling in my guts and I knew I was going to have a bad day. And I just said to my wife, it's a funny feeling that I had in my guts. Like the first couple of days after I took sick leave, I was a mess. I was crying every 2 seconds. And, and I said, right, I'm going to have to... So I stopped drinking alcohol straight away because it's depressive. I upped my fitness. So I've been going to the gym every day. I go for a walk every day. And I talked to my wife a little bit. And then I just basically withdrew from the job and said, right, time for me to heal.
Yeah.
So my psychologist says that I've been exposed to a massive trauma. He doesn't think I've got PTSD. He said that usually takes about 4 weeks to come on anyway. He says, but your body will take 8 to 12 weeks to heal. And so I've gone through this, like some days I'm a sad sack, but I've just had 6 days of feeling really good. And then I had another sad sack day. And so he sort of gives me strategies. What are you going to do about having that sad sack? And that's what's changed my opinion on how I'm going to do this lecture, because that overwhelming sort of sense of depression that comes through you from your guts, and you just wake up with it.
Yeah. Yep.
And you just go, and I've never had that before. And I text my wife and say, I'm going to have a bad day today. She goes, how do you know? And I said, I just woke up. And I can feel it.
Yeah.
And it feels like it overpowers you.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's the best way I've heard it explained.
Yeah.
It's the best way I've ever heard that explained. It is. It comes from your stomach. It comes from your guts. It does.
And you don't understand it. You don't know, like, as is,
It's a wave too.
Yeah,
it's like it just waves over you.
And it's some days it's been all day.
Yep.
And some days I've gone, well, no, I'm not going to fucking cop this. So I'll walk to the gym. I'll go to the gym, and I don't set the world on fire in the gym. I'm 56, but I go and I walk back from the gym. The gym's it's about 5,000 steps there and back.
Yep.
And and not having alcohol and looking at my body's a temple. That's really worked. And going to see the psychologist and talking to him, and he's just a tool that I'm going to make to get myself better. And so last week I had 2 good days. This week I've had 6 good days. So I celebrate those good days. I'm getting better. I can feel my body's healing.
Yep.
I feel good, and I'm not breaking down like I did before.
Yep.
So
but you're going to have those, it's all right to have those times because...
But one thing that I've really, really appreciated, I've had about 40 or 50 texts, not from senior management, but from my friends.
Yeah.
And not just tokenistic stuff. They were going, I'm here for you. If you want to catch up for a coffee. And some days you don't want to talk to anyone, but I've gone and I've made an effort to go speak to these people. We haven't talked about the job. We just had a laugh.
Yeah.
And I felt really good just getting out and doing stuff.
Yep.
And so I plan to do family stuff. And so my wife and I went and saw the new Terminator movie the other day.
Yeah.
Any good? I heard it's terrible.
Yeah, it's shit. But the first scene was a chick falling off a bridge.
Oh, stop it.
Splattering there. My wife looked at me and she goes, "You were right." And I said, "Yeah, it's surprisingly not affected me."
Yeah.
But the week before, when I was in a really bad way, we're watching Power on Stan, which is the drug.
You keep trying to get me onto that one. I still haven't watched it yet.
Anyway, one of the scenes, one of the chicks blows another chick's head off, and there's blood everywhere. Well, that affected me, and I said I really didn't need to see that. So
you just don't know what's gonna trigger it.
And like the other day, I had to go in the city to see my psychologist, and I'm walking along, and I'm enjoying the day, going, "Wow, isn't this a great day?" Propping myself up. And because I know sometimes I walk out of psychologist and I feel like shit. I feel exhausted.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm walking along, and this bloke didn't move out of the way and shoulder charged me. Like full on shoulder charged me.
Oh my God.
And I never carry my badge in my pocket. And I wanted to turn around and go and grab him.
Yeah.
But I knew it'd be a fight. I knew I'd get into a big fight. And I said, and how angry I have been, I probably would have smacked him out. It would have been a big bum fight. So I just ignored it and said, well, I think he came off second best because I held my ground and I walked fairly like a copper, sort of with a bit of confidence. And I thought, well, that prick must go around Sydney doing that to everyone. So I told my psychologist, and he goes, oh my God, that bloke could not have picked a worse person to do that. He says, I'm surprised you didn't rip him a new one and punch on with him. He said, because a few of my clients I've got would have.
Yeah.
And I said, a younger version of me, I would have.
Yeah.
That's really interesting what you just said there. Like, that psychologist's response to that was like, I'm surprised you didn't do that. Like, the understanding that he was bringing to the table from his experience.
Yeah.
He's not obviously not condoning it, but
he understands.
He's showing that he understands where you're coming from with it. And like, I think that's why, like, what I was getting at before was like, I don't know. I'm a bit of a pessimist. Like, I don't know if more psychology is going to fix anything. But as managers and leaders, and what you're doing is just instilling into people that culture of looking after each other. Like, if we can get that right at a base level, like people genuinely going, like, looking after each other, that I reckon is going to be, the key to people opening up about it, and to then being able to actually seek that professional help if they need it. And what I wanted to ask before was, like, do you think that perhaps it's a bit of apathy in, like, the senior ranks and some of the psychologists, that, like, these are things that happen so often in your job and in your role that it's like, oh yeah, it's just another day. It's just
expected.
Yeah, it's just expected. Yeah. Like,
I think the people that rang me and spoke to me, and the next level up is what we call a regional duty officer. They're inspectors.
Yeah.
So they're the bottom of the commissioned officers, like a second lieutenant or something like that. So they're the ones that rang me. When they saw it on the log, they rang me and said, "Holy shit, we just saw that job. Are you okay?" They didn't know I'd fallen off the perch.
Yeah.
So they said, "Are you okay? We just saw that job." And I said, "Yeah, I'm actually step back." Whereas the ranks above that, which half of them didn't even read that log.
Yeah.
Half of them didn't know what had happened. Or I'd say 90% of them didn't know what happened, judging by the lack of phone calls. But yeah, you're right. I think, and I was thinking as I was driving here, we can't change the government. We can't change the hierarchy of the police service to say we need more psychologists and we need this and this. We, as the troops, we are the ones that are going to change it, and we are going to break down those cycles and say, listen, how are you today? Ask the questions, and as you say, people watch this and go, oh, Tom, they sit in the car with you and they open up. And, so that we are the ones that are going to change it. So the non-commissioned officers of Defence Force, and we're going to break down this stigma. And it's mainly men, because women, I'm jealous of women because they've got such a good network with their friends. You talk on a better level to your friends.
Yeah.
Whereas men, we just don't talk on that level.
No.
And that's the barrier we need to replace and say, it's not a gay thing. It's not a bloody thing. It's just, we need to talk to our mates and say, not using the token, are you okay? Is, I feel what you're going through. I've been through it. This is how I get over it. And this is where, and as I said, this is where it starts for me. Maybe different for people. But we are the ones that are going to change.
I wonder if that's why, alcohol has always been such a, so closely related to these things, and why men have always used alcohol as that coping mechanism. Because, when you get into those groups and, your little tribe, and you do have a drink, you're able to actually not necessarily talk about it, but open up a bit more and just talk. And instead of being inside your head, it allows you to be more extroverted instead of introverted, and it gets you out of your head a lot more. And I think that's perhaps why alcohol is, predominantly used as a...
Well, most people use it as a social lubricant for going to events. If you know there's going to be a lot of people there that you haven't met before, you're like, I'm going to need a few drinks, to talk to these people. And I know from experience with you, Shane, in the earlier days when you were going through issues, when you would drink, you'd be more open about your issues, but it would come out the wrong way.
Exactly. I was going to say.
Shot right past
banter.
Right past talking about it and into a different...
I guess when we'll go for drugs and alcohol, and police, and Army and Defence Force, we're only a reflection of society. There's drugs and alcohol in the police. At the in Defence Force.
Everywhere.
We use them as a... Okay, I'm sick of feeling like this, but when I drink... Those few hours when I drink, I don't feel like that, and I'm having a break from how I feel. But the downside, and that's one of the reasons why I've jumped off the drink, and not that I drink very much, I've jumped off it because the downside can spiral you down and you go down further. So, and that's just me. I've said, okay, my body is a temple now. And that's what I'm doing.
And I suppose that's the challenge, and has been for a long time, is as people try to change the system and want to bring in these programs where, we need to talk more and open up more about this. I don't think we've ever figured out how do you do that, especially I think for men, is how do we do that without that lubricant? That's the hardest thing to do, is forcing people who maybe don't know each other very well to open up about things is very difficult without alcohol. Yeah,
I find success with talking to people about it is just, rather than, the token, like you said before, are you okay? And then get them to try to draw it out of them. You're not going to have success with that. When you talk about shared experiences, then that's when people will go, oh, that actually, that reminds me, I went to a job once, this is how I felt, and you can talk about that. By talking about your own experiences and shared experiences, that's when you're going to draw it out of each other.
But I also think it's amazing for these young recruits to have you, Andy, to come and you have that chat to them to start out. That's going to open up a whole different level of what they're thinking their job's going to be, and what they're expected to, I don't even know what to say, their expectations of it and who they can go to. That's different to just coming in. What your experience, Tommy, maybe? Which one's that? Would just be different, when you started. Yeah,
exactly. Do you find when you do that talk with the first years, do they have an understanding of it, or is it still... it doesn't make sense yet? Where
I'm plugged into them, I do the lecture on their first day at the academy, so they graduate on the Thursday. They start work at South Brisbane District on the Friday. So they're a little bit tuned out because they've graduated, they've been given a badge, they've got their guns and everything. They want to go out and fight crime and drive police.
Yeah.
But here they have to listen to this bloke with this black dog running around talking how doom and gloom, how the job's going to be. But I always talk about the job fondly, and I say the job is really good. And sometimes they have the field training officers in there with me, and I get that. So they're going to be the training officer for the new recruits. And I was sitting there once, and because I always ask people, did they get something out of that? Because if they don't, well, I've got to change my message. And I sat there, and there was this senior constable in there, and he's jaded. You could tell he was jaded. He was sitting there with his arms crossed. He was giving me no body language, and he's just glaring at me. And so I'm giving this lecture, and I never had the FTOs in there before. And
The what, sorry?
They're field training officers.
Oh, okay, yep.
So they'll train the newly sworn in police officers for
4 weeks.
4 weeks or 9 weeks at a time.
Yep.
And so all they do is work for that same person. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm getting really shitty at this bloke because he's just glaring at me. And I'm a senior sergeant and he was a senior constable, so he's quite low down. And you know me, Tom, I never one about say, I'm a fucking senior sergeant, you'll talk to me like this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty relaxed. And most people will just call me by my first name. And it doesn't bother me. I'm never been one on rank. But this guy was shitting me off. And anyway, at the end, he asked a question. I went, oh, here we go. And he says, well, people might be reluctant to talk to you because you'll know that they'll get their gun taken off them and they'll get counter duties.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I've actually spoke to the bosses and that's not our focus. Yeah, sure, if you're critically injured mentally, of course we've got to take a firearm off you.
Yeah.
If you're getting admitted to a psych ward and you're on strong medication, of course we're going to take your firearm off you for your safety and our safety. But if you're just reaching out and saying, I've got a problem, we're not going to take your firearm off you. And he said something smart. I didn't catch it. And so I finished up and I said to I finished up and I went, oh, I'll get the shits with you. So I said, look, when you get out there, if your FTO ever says to your TJF, the job's fucked, get rid of him. Go to your training officer straight away and say you don't want to work with that person. Because I don't want you getting taught by someone that hates the job already and who's got that negative attitude. And that's one thing I've hated. I know coppers have had on their personalised plates, TJF. And
it's next level.
I really hated that because, as I said, I've done this job for 30 years. I still love coming to work. And people that start the shift off, the job's fucked, you know. Well, what does that instill in you? You just go, So,
and it's the same in the army. Like, guys, you know, get over it. They've had enough, you know, and it just brings everyone else down. Like, it's very frustrating.
It changes the whole mood, doesn't it? It changes the vibe of the whole...
Yeah, it sets the mood.
And you can see it in a station when you've got a good crew on.
Yeah. You can feel the vibe.
You have a great shift and everyone gets out and has a great time and sometimes it's shit, but you get out there and have a good time.
Yeah. It is shit, but like you've chosen to do that. You chose the army didn't choose you. But you know, you've got to make the most out of what it is. There's going to be shit days, but you have to make the most out and remember why you're doing it in the first place, and that's to help people. And if you're not getting enjoyment out of that, you're in the wrong gig, and that's the same for any job or any service that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're starting to teach now resilience training. Mm-hmm. So the service is spending a full day, and the psychologists spend a whole semester on it. We cram it into one day. So you do a bit of pre-work, and they ask you all the questions, and then they come in there, and then you get a score, and you get a score for all the different sections like personality and everything like that. So they go through and they do this score on what sort of person you are. But resilience training, they're saying, okay, we can't stop police getting exposed to this trauma that we see. And it'd be like the army getting deployed. You can't stop them seeing the trauma that you're going to see. Mm-hmm. But we can build resilience in them so it's not going to affect them so much.
Yes.
So if they do, like myself, I'm crediting that I keep myself fairly fit, that I'm able to bounce back, and I am up to 6 days, a week, that I'm good.
Yep.
I don't think if I wasn't resilient, I think I would have fallen off the perch and I wouldn't be back to work for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's what we're teaching in the services, okay? And what we're saying is that you need to exercise. You need to watch your diet. You need to watch how much piss you drink.
Yeah. Mm.
You need to wake up in the morning and say, it's going to be a great day. Yeah, the sun, it's a beautiful day. How lucky am I? If you jump out of bed in the morning and go, oh, fuck, the job's fucked, got to go to night work, whatever, it sets the mood for the whole day.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's what... And there's no shame in what falling off the perch. That's what we've got to get across.
Yep.
And if you look at it, and I come from... My in-laws are all doctors, and a lot of their friends are all doctors. An endocrinologist once said we had to put one of my kids on some medication. He said, it's only a chemical imbalance. That's all we're doing, fixing up that chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
You know, our bodies aren't trained, whether we're police, military or whatever, we're not trained to see what we see.
No. That much stimulus.
Yeah.
And that's what I've said before, like with our job. You don't know what you're going to next.
Yeah.
You know, 1 minute you're laughing with your partner having a coffee, then all of a sudden it's on. Your adrenaline's shot through. You're seeing stuff you weren't really expecting to in that moment. Then you're done with it. Then you go to the next job. And you're constantly spiking. You, as a human being, you're gonna have some issues from that because you're all over the place.
It's not, your body's not meant to go through that much fight, flight, resistance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And that's exactly what a lot of the psychologists said. You either got to fight or flight. And when I was talking about that job, when I got out of the car, a guy stopped his car and was getting out of the car, and a push bike rider stopped his car, and I'll never forget the look on their faces when I actually, because I was about 10 metres back from when it happened, and they were right there, so they're getting out of their cars, the look on their face. And they had the fight or flight. I had the mode, I was in mode like, okay, I've got to put gloves on, I've got to do safety, and then I've got to treat this person, see if they're treatable. They just went, fuck this.
Yeah.
Go on. Didn't stay, they never hung around, and this guy sped off, the push bike rider.
Yep.
So they had that fight.
And that's a story. They'll go back to their families and they'll tell that story forever. It's like a big moment in their life, probably seeing that.
They're I guarantee you they'll both be traumatised from it.
Yeah.
And then we go to that. Who knows how many times we'll go see that, you know? And there's, you know, you'd have over 30 years service, you'd have so many traumatic events. You probably haven't even, you can't remember some of them.
Yeah.
I remember all of them.
You remember all of them? Yeah. But there's that many, you know? And some are going to be worse than others as well, obviously.
Yeah.
And you can only tolerate so much. Like you said, like the cup's overflowing, like 30 years worth of overflowing.
Yeah.
But see, as I said, I pride myself that I am pretty resilient.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's in my head in the initial stage was taking the sick leave and breaking down. I was embarrassed when I broke down at Dutton Park. And because I'm the person that is the rock for the whole district.
Yeah.
And one of the focuses that have been pushed back to me is you need to focus on yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what would you do differently? And, you know, I'd do differently. I wouldn't chase after that bloke that shoulder charged me and beat the shit out of him. I remain calm. You know?
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing, you know. It's a fight or flight. I think that's a great thing. But
I think it's important. You just said before, you know, when you and me were talking in the day room and you did break down, you said you were embarrassed about it. I think it's important for people to see that our leadership suffers as well. Like you're out on the road all the time, and we expect you to be that rock, and that's how we look at you. But to know that, okay, fuck, he can feel like this as well,
and it's okay, and he can come back,
you know,
better.
Nothing to be embarrassed about.
Oh yeah, but it's just.
But yeah, that's
it's just you.
That's how you feel.
The inner voice is the worst voice. You
know? Oh
like,
yeah. It's your biggest
whoever's
critic.
listening to this or watching this, you know, other coppers will appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff because they don't, you know, you don't always hear about this.
There's so many of us.
Yeah.
There are so many of us that suffer in silence.
I don't think you can do this job for more than 12 months and not have a job or something that affects you or be affected in some way because, like we said, you go into these things. Like, you can't hide from these things. You have to go to these jobs.
That's one of the reasons why I built that gym up. That's one of the reasons why I invested in this gym downstairs. The gym was shit. It was doing nothing.
This is at our station.
At your station.
Yeah, our station.
So while I was there, I had the luxury of being there for a while, and because the last boss retired, and I saw this space, and I said, right, if these guys are going to cope with what's out there, straight away they need a good gym downstairs. And the gym that we've got now, and another bloke's jumped on board and run with it too.
Yeah. Shout out to Brady. Good work, mate.
Yeah, and he's actually won an award for it. The gym is better than any Snap Fitness.
Oh wow!
It's good.
It is fantastic.
That's so good.
And there's a bar set up down there now, so people can have a drink afterwards. So just those little things, you know, building resilience, getting our troops strong. But yeah, it's okay to break down, and I agree with that now. It's okay.
Yeah.
To break down, it's okay to share your feelings.
Yep.
It's okay to shed a tear.
Yeah, absolutely. With
And it doesn't make me less of a man.
no,
God,
it's not.
no.
Make you less of a man or
It
woman.
humanises us.
Yeah, exactly
yeah,
right.
Yeah, because a lot of the public, with all the stuff we deal with, they don't see this side. They just expect a lot of
They
people
see the
expect-
uniform. They don't see the
uniform,
human. Yeah.
and when we're dealing with their job, they want all of our attention, and rightfully so. But they may not understand what we've been through,
Or what you've
earlier
been
in that
to.
day, or what we've
Yeah.
been to earlier in the day or days leading up. So yeah, this humanises us. Did want to ask you. You'd probably be interested to know as well, Madison. With your wife,
Oh, yeah.
how does she go with when you do fall off the perch and have times like this? Does she have things in place to help you? Does she understand how to help you?
Yeah, my wife's as my pillar of support.
Yep.
What I did, what I consciously stopped doing a while ago, was relaying everything that happens at work.
Yep.
Because what I was doing was stressing my wife out, and she's more worried about me. She always says, "You're the strongest, most resilient man I've ever known. The things that you see and do, and you just bounce back."
Yep.
And since this happened, but she's always been my rock.
Yeah.
And I always can bounce off her. She was away that weekend, so I didn't have, and it's nothing. She went on a girls' weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Exactly.
Yep.
So she knew straight away. She said, "Something wrong?" And I've got into bed at night and I've had a punch up and I've got a black eye or something. And she said, "Only recently I got into a punch up." And I had to go hands on with someone. I hopped in bed. She was dead to the world, and she woke up and said, "Are you all right? You're injured." And I went, "How the f-" And she couldn't put a finger on it. She just knew.
Wow.
But yeah, behind every great man, and I don't consider myself great, but my wife is, and I'm blessed to have such a beautiful wife, loving wife, and a supportive wife, and she's been nothing but supportive for this. And even my kids have been supportive, because I wasn't aware that when you get angry all the time, you get righteous. So you get righteous. Like I was getting righteous about freaking everything. Like I was just, and it wasn't until it was pointed out to me that that's just part of what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh, well, that's all right." So I told the family, but they were very understanding.
Yeah, and once you start, once it's pointed out to you and you can start seeing yourself, that's the only time you can start changing that behaviour.
Yeah. And my wife's
We'll start changing it, Shane. How many times are going to point it out?
My wife's got a really good... When I come home cranky or I speak to her rough... And I don't speak to her roughly often, but when I'm short with her...
Yeah.
She says, "I'm sure you don't mean to sound the way you're sounding to me."
Oh, I love that.
That's straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, my psychologist...
Just to keep calm and say that.
Can I write that down?
Yeah, I'm going to write it down.
And it puts it straight back on you.
Yeah.
And I actually say it to the crooks as well. "I'm sure you don't mean to say..." You know how when they get short with you?
Yeah.
And I actually put it back on them, and it's reverse psychology where you're saying it makes them think, and it makes me think. So it changes the way I'm talking.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Probably helps she's a nurse too. She's got that loving, energy already. And
well, so
yeah.
and I'm blessed.
Yep.
I've been married 20 years. Been going out 25 years.
Oh, wow. So she's goes all happy to go along with all the different job changes and...
She's not win. She went to Early Beach.
No, I wouldn't whinge about that.
She was going to go to Charleville or Cunnamulla when I was putting in for sergeants, because I was putting for sergeants jobs everywhere.
Yeah.
She was going to go anywhere, and that's when we came back. I drove from Brisbane to Bay Desert every day. Even though my position came with a house, because I said, "Where do you want to live? You followed me around. Where do you want to live?" She goes, "I want to live in our own house."
Yeah.
And I said, "Fair enough. I'll drive."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, resilience training. You got to have someone that you can speak to.
So we spoke a lot about, the programs and things they're starting to bring out for police officers now. Is there anything where there's support groups for spouses or work groups for spouses, or even just at a station level where, because I know at my work, they try and organise, functions and whatnot and get the partners involved so all the partners can meet each other and things like that. Are you guys doing that kind of thing as well, or...?
Only for really critical incidents.
Okay.
Like a police shooting or something like that.
Yeah.
The psychologists actually come to the partner as well and in bed with them as well. Because they're affected as well.
Yeah. Well, that is actually, that is good. Because like you said, the Army's starting to do that, aren't they?
Yeah, so there's always family days that's organised by brigades and the bigger formations, but and even down to a smaller unit level, they do organise those family days. But I find not a lot of people end up going to them because it's sort of like forced fun and things like that. But like I think we're starting to get kind of a bit of a balance. Like it only happens once or twice a year, but the hierarchy will make sure that if we do have like a function or a cocktail party, it's not just, you know, an end of year function for the guys to get pissed. It's no, you're bringing your partners because they put up with all this crap all year, you being away and all that stuff, for them to be able to come together and, you know, have a drink together and get to know each other a bit better. So kind of try and build that network up as well, so that the spouses know each other, and because they go through a lot, like being away and
the shit tars everyone.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd say that would probably exist more in like rural postings, because smaller communities, you don't really have anyone else to rely on, would you? So
Blow Desert, we were very social. Early Beach were very social, mainly because the social club was the end of my front yard. and the boss that I work with, and that's one of the reasons I went there, he's an outstanding boss. And we were sorry to see him go because he got promoted. But he was really big on having functions. Like we'd have a function every couple of weeks. So we'd have a barbecue, and wives were always encouraged to come, wives and girlfriends and boyfriends. Always encouraged, and there would always be a good turnout. So and that was his doing, and that's one thing you saw. And we were Early Beach. All the bosses want to come and visit Early Beach. Yeah. So we had the commissioner, we'd have the assistant commissioner coming all the time. You'd have the superintendent, because they say, I'm going to Early Beach to do a station visit. Yeah. But really, they're going there to have, look at this lovely place.
Sorry.
Yeah. So that's the best I've seen it. At Whitsunday Station. That was one of the. And I tried to bring that in at Bow Desert as well. Yeah. So I'd make sure that, let's have this function and let's have golf days. And
I really believe, like, on a ground level, like, that first line of defence for people's mental health is forming that strong knit community and, like, tribe, and making sure that, you know, like, you're not going to relate to someone or even go and talk to someone if you don't know them. If you only see them for, like, you know, 5 minutes here and there, like as you're passing them and things like that, like until people get to actually know each other in a social setting, not necessarily about work, that's when people start to open up more.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And try not to talk about work too much.
Yeah.
Try and talk about life.
And I think and that's where I think the spouses come in and make it that a whole lot easier, because they don't want to talk about that crap. You know, you know, there's heaps of other stuff going on that they, you know, and they're able to, like, kind of mediate that.
That's why I hate when you go to work drinks or whatever, and I'm like, I don't want anyone to talk about work, and then you always hear that phrase, someone will say, so I was at this job the other day, or I had this one job. I'm like, don't do it. Let's just talk about other stuff. Surely you've got hobbies, you know. Sure you have a life.
Well, the visits that I've had from people and gone to have coffee, the ones that I've really enjoyed is the ones we didn't talk about work. I've had visits from people and they'll tell me about the most horrific jobs they've been to. I don't want to hear that.
No.
I don't want to hear that 5 people got splattered all over the road.
No.
You know, like, I want to just talk about shit.
Yeah.
This coffee's nice. Oh, what a great day.
Yeah. That's one thing we've said, like, just about every episode. Yeah, it all comes back to that identity, and we talk about it with soldiers finding a new identity. Same with first responders, emergency services, coppers. When you're not at work, you don't just be a police officer. Like, have other things, have things you can talk about. Another social network as well that aren't just in the job. Yeah. Well, that's when you get jaded and you have issues. Mate, like, if you have a final message or final note, especially for police officers listening, do you have one for how to look after each other, what we can do at a station level maybe to look after each other?
Just look at your people. Look at, like, and that's one thing I think one of my strengths is. You might differ, but one of my strengths is I know my staff under my control, and I know when they're going through things, and I look out from at jobs, and I look at how people react, and it may only be a little thing, like it might go, hey, look, they'll never come out and say I'm not coping with this. Yeah. And I just, to tidy up, I noticed the one bloke that I was really concerned about at that job I told you about that affected me was he came and shouted at this guy who was dying on the road, like really give him a godful.
Like having a go at him?
Oh, yeah. Why the fuck did you do that for, you stupid cunt? And
that's a red flag right there.
I looked up. I couldn't stop what I was doing, but I looked up and went, right, I'm going to go see you. And I made a point the next day to go see him. And I rang him that night and I spoke to him and said, I just wanted to touch base and see if you're all right. Because I'm not all right. And I said, I broke down at the top of the street there. And he goes, I really appreciate it because you've normalised it for me. He thought it just himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we need to do, and as I said before, the enlisted people, the non-commissioned officers are the ones that are going to solve our friends' problems and be there for them. And not just say, text them and say, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Make an effort. Go see them.
Yep.
Let's have coffee. Let's do coffee. And don't talk about work. Don't tell us about your gory bloody jobs. Just talk about life in general.
Yeah.
You know?
Just spend time with them and
Have a laugh.
They're sitting at home. And if they're having a bad day, they're going, oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
You know, so, I think as we're the ones, and blokes especially, we're the ones that are going to break down that stigma and help our mates.
Yep, absolutely. Well, mate, appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for your
all right.
time.
Thank you very much. That's
This is outstanding. I've seen a few of your episodes, and I actually went through the academy with Sean O'Gorman.
Oh,
okay.
So we were at the same thing. So I've known him fairly well.
Yeah, right.
So this sort of thing, I think, can only get bigger and bigger. And it's this sort of thing that can, and I don't know how many people follow this. I believe it's in the hundreds. So
a fair few now, we're getting there.
You know, so you're reaching out to a fair few people who are sitting at home watching this and saying, hey, it's all right. The way I feel, it's all right.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if everyone can share the page, like we want to get as many people listening. So there's that many stories to be shared. Like Andrew's story today, like I'm sure there's so many police officers or first responders, AJs as well, that have a very similar experience, and hopefully you get something out of this. But yeah, mate, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you on the road again. Until next time, Maladjusted Monkeys, we're out.